Each pony wore barding made of thick hide. Much like Night, I had never seen a firearm before, save for pictures and books. But those books were more than explicit enough for me to recognize the mortal threat. The bound unicorn on the mat shook his head with a sad yet derisive look and began trying to scrape the gag away with a forehoof, no longer making effort to keep the chain secret. The 3 ponies menacing me spared him only the occasional glance.
Might as well have trussed yourself up for us,
the gun-wielding unicorn snickered, then, addressing me,
You wouldn't mind, would you?
Laughter.
And another unicorn, too. She'll fetch a pretty price, this one.
Fetch a price for what, and from whom? The one holding the shovel spear in his mouth mumbled something incomprehensible, then, apparently deciding the gun was sufficient deterrent, spat out his weapon and reiterated,
By the God, look at her. I think she's taken a bath.
I was suddenly and bizarrely aware of how filthy all 4 of the ponies were and how foul they smelled. I managed to cover a gag with a sneeze. What's going on? I asked. Of the emotions battling for supremacy in my head, confusion had clawed its way to victory. The captive unicorn finally succeeded in pulling the filthy gag free.
They're slavers, you idiot.
Monterey Jack, the dirty beige unicorn with dour expression and a cutie mark that looked like cheese, followed behind me as we trudged alongside our captors, walking a broken path that once was a road. My legs were in chains, making walking difficult and anything more speedy than a trot impossible. My pitbuck had stymied the slavers' efforts to bind my forelegs, eventually forcing them to chain me above the knees. Had the one with the shovel spear not been holding its point dangerously against my throat, the other 2 would have gotten a few hooves to tender places for their efforts. As it was, they had made short work of me. I was not gagged, but Monterey had convinced me early that unnecessary chatter from the slaves-to-be would likely result in the loss of my tongue. Not that I had much to say to these brutes anyway, aside from my repertoire of colorful metaphors. I didn't expect they would answer my questions, even if my tongue should have survived the asking, and they were being chatty enough with each other to suffice.
Herf,
grumbled the earth pony through the spear clenched in his teeth.
Well then, if you would just learn to swim, we could take the long way, couldn't we?
Suggested the unicorn with poison sweetness.
By
his smell, decidedly more pungent than the others, I guessed that he just hated water in general.
How about you stop complaining and I'll let you sample one of the slaves before we get to the forest?
The leader, the earth pony named Cracker, with the spiked shoes and a cutie mark that looked suspiciously like a whip, or maybe a snake? I don't know. Turned back towards Monterey with a filthy smile. I looked away. They laughed. Through their disgusting dialogue, I could hear a liquidy sound ahead. Not like a burbling water fountain, but closer to a sloughing muck, and something else, a distant sound getting closer. Music? Yes, music. Slightly tinny, yet triumphant, regal. Couldn't put my hoof on exactly what feeling the music was trying to inspire, but it was brightly out of place. Cracker took note of my expression and smirked.
You look like you've never heard that before. What, did you live your life in a stable? If you're hoping for the cavalry, that ain't it, Philly. That's just one of those sprite bots.
The music cut out with a sharp twang. The unicorn slaver, Sawed-Off, trotted ahead a bit, peering down the path ahead. Turning back to the rest of us, he smirked.
Think one of the ratigators got it?
Cracker suggested it flew into some pony's booby trap. The other earth pony suggested a mouthful of spear-mangled mumbling. The unicorn turned forward again, and the glow from his horn illuminated the machine. A metal ball about the size of a foal's head floating on 4 silently flapping wings, hovering slightly right in front of his face. No arcane science this, I could tell. It was pure earth pony engineering.
What the fuck?
Sawed-Off let back a full pony's length in surprise, then swung his shotgun to bear and fired it at the sprite bot. The sound was like a metal plate falling from the ceiling, and it echoed through the night-darkened hills. Sparks speckled the metal ball as it peppered with scattershot. It let out an electric whine and then darted into the darkness. The unicorn almost took after it, but Cracker's voice cut the distance between them.
That's enough, Sawed-Off. Save your ammo.
Damn it, I hate it when they pull that stealthy shit. It's a flying fucking radio. It's not supposed to sneak up on ponies.
My ears were burning from the free flow of crude profanity, but I didn't mind. I was mulling over what I'd just seen. "What a moron," muttered Monterey Jack under his breath. "They heard that all the way in Ponyville." Unlike my fellow slave, I was pleased to have witnessed the unicorn firing off his weapon, because now I knew how it worked. What kind of damned fool announces his presence this close to fucking raider territory? A river slithered across our path, its waters slipping and oozing along its banks, half stagnant. The water lapped and sucked at the supports of a bridge, making the wet sounds I had been hearing. Beyond the bridge lurked the shattered remains of a pre-war town. The bridge was a maze of barricades. Dark shadows of ponies moved about it. Briefly, I may have made the mistake of hoping for rescue, but my eyes were drawn to the spiked poles that lined the bridge, and the still rotting heads of decapitated ponies that adorned two of them. I tasted bile. The sight was horrific.
"Cager, stay here."
Cracker said, finally putting a name to the spear-wielding slaver pony.
"Sawed off, let's go hear where the toll is this time."
Monterey Jack lowered his head and looked balefully towards the bridge. I moved closer to him, following his example and hoping that I had positioned myself so Cager couldn't see the faint glow from my horn as I slipped my screwdriver and bobby pin from my stable utility barding. Like all of the slaver's equipment, the manacles on my legs were crude and of low quality. As Cracker and Sawed-Off argued with the bridge ponies, I focused on picking the first lock. I was rewarded with a soft click as it sprung open, releasing my pip-buck foreleg. The manacle fell to the ground with a little thump.
"Huh?"
Cagey's ears had shot up, and now he moved around to see me. Swiftly I cut the magic, dropping the screwdriver and bobby pin into the dirt, and hoped that in the darkness the slaver couldn't see the change in my chains. Cager growled dangerously. The nasty sharp edge of the shovel hovered inches from my eyes. Cagey turned abruptly, the spear shovel slashing close enough to my face that I shrieked. The gunshot was from the bridge. It didn't sound like Sawed-Off's shotgun, but the second shot did. It took Cagey a breath to recognize that crossing the bridge had become a bloody affair. Glowering back at us, his posture threatening, he started to say something. I suspect he was warning us to stay put, but I'll never know. His head exploded, showering me with gore. I stood there, eyes wide, shaking with shock. Blood, warm and sticky, ran down my forehead and into my left eye, oozed into my coat and mane. In the growing list of things I'd not seen before this night, the death of another pony ranked at the top. I blinked, feeling the blood on my eyelid. Cagey was dead, and I had Cagey all over me. The urge to throw myself into the river was overwhelming, but I wouldn't get to it like this. Pushed by something more than determination now, my horn once again glowed and I began to unlock the rest of my manacles. I spared a glance towards the bridge, seeing Sawed-Off hunkering down beside one of the barricades as he magically pulled a shotgun open, stuffing in more ammo. 2 shots, I realized. One at the Sprite bot, one just now. 2 shots, then reload. Closing the weapon, he levitated it up above the barricade and shot blindly into the violent milieu, spraying an already wounded raider pony with scattershot. The pony staggered and fell. Unfortunately for Sawed-Off, the raider behind him had a different kind of shotgun, one that was faster and not limited to 2 shots, that fired slugs which tore great holes in the unicorn slaver's body the moment he looked up to see the results of his effort. I turned away, cringing from the nightmare playing out before me. I focused on the locks. I'd freed myself and was beginning to free Monterey when 2 raider ponies trotted off the bridge towards us, stepping over the battle-mutilated corpses of Cracker, Sawed-Off, and the raiders they had taken down with them. One of those approaching was the unicorn raider with the devastating combat shotgun. The other, an earth pony with a sledgehammer in his teeth. The unicorn was laughing, not the mean laugh of Cracker, but a crazed laugh that sent chills down the back of my neck.
Looks like we got ourselves some prizes.
The earth pony chortled behind the sledgehammer as the unicorn looked us over appraisingly. The 2 were somehow even filthier than the slavers. The unicorn bore jagged scars across her face and flanks, one of them tearing through her cutie mark, several freshly bleeding. The earth pony was hairless and painfully burned over much of her left side. Both wore barding that looked ragged and cobbled together.